Cool. I think Alex, we are live. How do I spell your last name, Alex? Like
My surname would be Rinborg.
Greenborg. Oh, nice. That's a sound like a cool robotic X-Men feels last name. But thanks for taking on the time to do this. Really appreciate it. I'm Rishabh, and I'm the co-founder and CEO at Pepper Content. It's been a good 6 years building this out. But the best part about the journey has been, something like today, right? Where I'm here with Alexander, the head of SEO at GetResponse. He has been in the SEO game for nearly a decade, with 4 years as an SEO specialist and over 5 years as a team lead. And let me tell you, this guy lives and breathes adaptations, right? And it's not just about SEO technicalities. Alex is a pro at leading international teams, juggling different time zones, work cultures like a champ. And he's all about learning as you go, right? Which is pretty much what you do as a founder as well myself. So I'm pretty much looking forward to learn that from Alex even more. Welcome, Alex. I think great to have you here. But yeah, I think probably a brief comment on your own journey before we set the context for the conversation itself.
Sure thing. Thank you for the warm introduction there, Rishabh. Pleasure to be here. In brief, my journey was I started out as a journalist doing local journalism, and quite shortly after that, I did content marketing for a SaaS company in Sweden. And when you enter content marketing, eventually you stumble upon SEO. And I realized that this was something that really attracted me. So I became a specialist in that field. Worked then in the company for a number of years. I also built up a team and led a team within affiliate, so sports betting, casino, iGaming, affiliate SEO. Really interesting to be able to work with a global team on that. And now I'm kind of back to SaaS again and GetResponse in Poland, and we're doing a marketing software basically for small business. Yeah.
Lovely. And Alex, I think one thing that I've noticed in my journey of 6 years working with thousands and thousands of creators and SEO folks, the best SEO folks and the best content creators are the people who start with a journalistic background. I don't know if that there's some science behind it, but I've seen this trend myself. So I think thanks for that brief intro. Right. So before we begin, let's set some context. We all know tech is reshaping SEO, at a speed which is unsettling to say the least, right? SEO is a landscape that is changing almost every day. Algorithm updates, new ranking factors, evolving consumer behaviors, and just and AI are just now part of the game, right? But what's really shaking things up is actually AI, right? Now, when we talk about AI in SEO, we're not discussing a distant future. We are talking something that probably people are already undertaking or already have done in some places, right? Currently, AI is no longer an optional tool. It's becoming an integral part of our SEO toolkit. So, from the state of AI and SEO to emerging trends in the field, Alex, I hope you're about to drop some knowledge bombs that can redefine how we approach SEO, right? Probably if we begin on the questions and the conversation, right? We have spent almost a decade engaged in SEO, right? What has been your experience using AI for content optimization tools for your SEO goals? Are there any specific benefits when compared to traditional SEO?
Sure. I think AI and the role of AI has played a role in SEO, at least on Google's part now for many years. But I think it's more of a recent thing that it's become almost a necessity in the industry in the way that we work. Some changes I've seen recently, and especially when it comes to content optimization, as you mentioned, AI and content optimization, like AI has basically raised the bar for what is mediocre or acceptable content. It used to be that you needed to hire freelancers, have some people to do the writing. You mentioned journalists. That's ideal, but not everybody has that. Today, you can use a tool and you can optimize the content to a level that's, I would say, acceptable. The tools also powered by AI today, they give inspiration and you can spar with them. So if you feel that you don't really know what you're going to talk about, the tool can guide you. And also the tools today, they help you to build templates. So if you want to, let's say, create a 4,000 word guide about, let's say, how to do email marketing. Then today the tool can actually spec out, oh, you need an introduction, you need to talk about the history of email marketing, you need this, you need that, you need that, and then you need the writer to fill in the blanks, ideally. So that's something that's really has changed in the industry. Um, Also, when it comes to content research is quite time consumption still, but using AI tools, this is now much more efficient. So if you need to have, for instance, external sources that you can cite to earn more trust with the reader, to actually show facts and numbers in your text, the tool can provide it for you. You don't need to go to Google and search. And I mean, competitive research, that's something that almost every content SEO is doing before they write the content. That also takes time. You need to Google, you need to check the top 10 results, you need to find a way how to be different. And today the tools can kind of give you that information and package it to you. Not maybe 100%, but they do a big bulk of the job. And in short, it saves you time.
Right. But and again, this is probably not a question that we have shared to you, but this always intrigues me is that if there are 10 content pieces from across different 10 organizations and they put that in the same SEO optimizer tool, for example, right? Uh, why will the end output differ, right? Why will some get all the traffic and some even don't get to rank, right? How does that work?
I'm really glad you raised that. So we're already now touching upon what's behind the hype in this area, and this is one of these points. Yeah, I mean, SEO at heart has always been about differentiation, like doing something slightly different than others, different, new, better. And if everybody sits and uses ChatGPT or Bing Chat or what have you to inform them about what content they should write, some people even use tools just to write the content and publish it, which we can talk about later. It has become really trendy. The question is, what's the differentiating factor? What's going to make you rank at the top? What's going to make the readers really happy and get some value out of the content? So I think I attended Brighton SEO some months ago, and AI was also a big theme there. But what I could tell from the audience and from the speakers there was people are kind of tired of this way of just hashing out very mediocre content. These tools are just tools. They're not end in themselves. So you still need to have great writers. You still need to have inspiration. You still need to come up with a great content angle. Yeah, the tool can give you a structure. It can maybe give you a template. Maybe it can do some of the research for you. But if the tool does everything for you, the end product is mediocre. And so I guess some of the SEOs today do manage to make traffic out of that. The question is, will that work in 1 to 2 years' time? Hard to say, but probably not. Yeah, it's competition is too fierce.
Got it. Got it. Let's take a probably step back, and if you're explaining, say, AI in SEO to a family member or to a, I think 5-year test that we call likely, how would you explain that?
Oh man, explaining SEO to a family member, that sounds painful. It's hard. But let's say I would put it something like this. In my work, we used to collect and analyze a lot of data. We did this in a manual way. We wanted to find patterns, insights in the data that could guide us, and this took time. Uh, Thanks to artificial intelligence, which you can see as a second brain that helps you to think in a better way or a faster way, now we can automate and we can simplify some of this work. And the questions that we used to ask ourselves, and only we could answer them, now we can give some of those questions to a chatbot, and we can get decent answers back. And that helps us to save time.
Got it. Got it. That makes sense, right? Uh, at say at Get Response, you're responsible for international SEO. For professionals located in Europe, Asia, and say US, right? What is global SEO and how can companies leverage that, right? Because usually a lot of times when you do keyword research, when you do content strategy, all of it is done from a mindset. Okay, what are the keywords that are being searched in this region, right? But how do you then optimize the entire website or get SEO done for so many different regions with so many different user behaviors out there?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a good topic there. And To start with, you need to recognize that the world is not the same everywhere. Obvious statement, but look how many companies that kind of fail to understand that. So if you want to rank, let's say United States and let's say Brazil, they're um, connected to each other somehow geographically, but they're very, very different still. So the first thing you need to realize is that the search behavior between these two countries will be quite big. So let's say that you are in a SaaS company like I am, and you want to promote a product or service. What's the demand for that service in Brazil versus US? The search volumes will likely be much different. What is popular right now in Brazil, for instance, this is a real case for us. Uh, Building websites using AI, it's super huge right now in Brazil, has been for a few months. It's just completely exploded. We don't know why, but the Brazilians are crazy about it. In the US, yeah, it's big, but it's not that type of growth. So then you need to adjust your strategy to that. Maybe you need to do more outreach. Maybe you need to put in more blog content and talk more about AI website building in Brazil versus putting the same amount of resources and budget and time in US. So differentiation between markets to some degree is important if you want to be successful long term. Then another thing that we usually see also, because we cover multiple markets in my team, it is that the search intent might actually differ also between markets, especially now in AI, where people are not really fully sure yet what they're looking for sometimes. Google tries to guess what we want. Maybe they succeed, maybe they fail. But there's also difference there between markets. So what you really need to have at core is to build a team, preferably by people who are native to each market. They understand the language, they understand the market, they have some social network, and they will be able also to craft content that's unique to that market. And that's one of the points I would also mention. A lot of companies who want to make it on multiple markets, they take an English, let's say US first approach, and they just translate everything. And they say, oh, we're done. We just translate to German, to other languages. Now we can sit back and watch the traffic come. The problem is that translation usually ends up, I would say, just as AI content to some degree, it's kind of mediocre. You need to localize it. The difference between localization and translation is that in localization, you need to slightly rewrite the content. You can't use the same catchy phrases that sound good in American English and use that in Italian. It will sound ridiculous. So literal translations are not good. You need native people who understand the language and who will put their own spin to it. It will be more challenging for a marketing team to execute on a campaign slightly differently across markets. But if you want to succeed long term, you need to go with that approach, I think.
No, I think that's what we internally have you know understood a lot is translation is not transcreation in a way. I think people don't understand that content has nuance, which is very region specific, right? And if you're selling in India versus selling in US, you just don't need to translate that. The culture is different, so I think buying personas and user behavior is different. So I think very well put. I think moving towards which is all the trends in AI is personalization, right? I think it's been an overused term for the last decade. Every company wanted to do that, right? And since till AI gets in, and then it's the landscape has changed, right? How does AI driven personalization, say in your experience at Get Response, because you probably do millions and millions of emails and do that through AI, right? Contribute to improving the user experience.
Sure. Yeah, there are probably different layers there of what we can do. And I agree that a lot of personalization is kind of overrated. And in fact, some of the emails that you receive sometimes that try to be personalized are just downright creepy. They mentioned your name, that they've never really talked to you before, stuff like that. But on the AI side, I think what we will see is that AI can basically manage a lot of big data. And from that, it can see patterns and then take actions based on those patterns. So previously, if you're doing email marketing, as an example, maybe let's say that you have a newsletter with thousands of contacts. You need to spend time going through seeing what type of people clicked on my email. Why didn't they click? What type of subject lines work well? I think a lot of those tasks of finding out what works can be done by AI already to a quite good degree. Something also that I think will be more and more we're seeing soon is to actually generate a lot of content that's personalized based on AI. I mean, the search engines have been doing it for many years, but I think it's now we as marketers get our hands on those tools. Like just in our company, we just released an AI campaign generator. So basically, what it
Right.
does is you're a small business person, but you don't have time or you lack inspiration to make a campaign. So you enter a few basic information about your business, and then we generate for you based on ChatGPT technology, a newsletter, welcome email, landing page. But the point is not that this is the end stage. It's just to get you started. And this is where I think personalization also plays a role. You as a marketer will be able to get a lot of pre-generated content, but you still need to add the human touch. Like you mentioned, Rajib, the nuances. Yeah, and the culture. That's super important. So you need to make sure that the subject line doesn't sound weird. You need to make sure the landing page, okay, the layout might be fine, but you may need to tweak the headlines and the messaging a bit. That's up to you. So personalization won't be done like fully automatically, but I think for a lot of, especially smaller businesses, like semi-automatically doing this today, works pretty well. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Makes sense, right? I think I hope we soon move past where personalization is just changing your name. But I think and I think, but one of the biggest advantages of incorporating AI in SEO has to be the increased efficiency, right? I think we do that for a lot of companies. We help create SEO strategies, and this it's gotten a lot faster. And although that increases chance of the output being bad, but I think if you're meticulous enough, you can get the same work done probably much much faster, right? um AI driven automation is making SEO tasks more efficient. So what areas of SEO would you say benefit the most from automation? What are you seeing right now?
Right. Uh, Usually when we talk about AI, we think about the chatbots that came out recently. So if we just take those for a second, they are large language models. So that's what they tend to do very well still, I feel personally, like language-based tasks. For instance, you mentioned, Rishabh, the localization and translation. Yeah, that's something that they do very well. Previously, people used Google Translate and so forth. Many of these chatbots far outperform Google Translate, at least in my opinion. I think the language looks better. So translation, that's an obvious thing. Also semantic analysis, I think they do very well in. Let's say that you want to you're doing a content marketing strategy for a company or a client, and you want to create a strategy, and you want to create keyword clusters. Previously, you would need to sit there manually, like, okay, this topic fits into this topic, and then we can group them together. That's something that the AI can do already. They're very good at finding which topic relates semantically to another and which ones could be grouped into a cluster. This sort of thing, the AI can really do well. And I think one thing that is not mentioned a lot of times, but I think if we're honest with ourselves, we do a lot of this manual work, reformatting content, or just kind of transforming it from one format to another. This is something that the chatbots do really well. Like, let's say that you receive some information from your colleague in a table format, but you want to skip half of the stuff that you see in the table, or you really don't like the way the filter or the columns have been set up. Previously, this took kind of a lot of time to redo. Now you can just put it to the chatbot and say, hey, skip this column, switch these values around, highlight this in bold, and much of the time it will do a really good job. So yeah, these kind of language-based tasks, I think it does well.
Lovely, lovely. And if you have to give, right, apart from get response, what are some promising new AI technologies that say B2B SaaS companies should be on lookout for use to up their SEO game?
Mm-hmm. That's a good one, Rishabh. I think I would like to mention Bing Chat because I feel like ChatGPT has stolen so much of the scene lately. Bing Chat is great because it's powered by ChatGPT 4, but it is also hooked up to Bing's all the content that Bing search engine has ever seen, essentially. So the web data, and that is a crucial thing. Like a lot of the tasks that we do as SEOs, yeah, ChatGPT is great, but oftentimes we need also processing based upon what's out on the web, and that's something that I think works really well with Bing Chat. So I would give thumbs up for that. On top of that, I would also mention the enterprise sections. So today we have Bing Chat Enterprise, and there's also ChatGPT Enterprise. Because in a lot of companies, especially perhaps in SaaS companies, you have IT and security teams, they will say, oh, the chatbots are great, but what about the data privacy? What about security? And here it's really nice because with enterprise editions that are now available, that data never leaves basically your domain. So if you use Bing Chat Enterprise, Microsoft is not going to process that data and so forth. So I think the security part now is kind of solved, and we can actually roll this out on scale in the companies. Then the stuff like I find interesting, Midjourney, I think is great still, especially for image generation. I think a lot of campaign style stuff that design teams used to do can be partly created by Midjourney. At the very least, you can create mock-up images there. And then something I stumbled upon recently that it's still in its infancy, but it has potential. It was called Hey Gen Labs, and they basically have a technology to automatically take a YouTube video and translate the voice from one language to the other. And we listened to it. We played around with a bit with it a few weeks here, and we switched from English to Polish to German. And I mean, it has the quirks that you expect. Like it sounds a bit robotic. It doesn't understand metaphors, like this complex nuances in language. But let's say you wait 6-12 months. I mean, maybe this is doable. This could mean that you create one English YouTube video, and then you can scale that across multiple markets by localizing it. Again, depends on which audience you have and so forth. But just for support videos, for instance, huge potential. Yeah. And I mean, lastly, I would also mention perhaps third-party APIs such as Zapier or similar that you can actually hook up to some of these AI tools. So you could, for instance, connect ChatGPT to, for instance, Excel or Google Sheets, and you can trigger actions. So that's something that I think can be a game changer for many departments in the future. You can imagine, for instance, that you are a team, you have a big content calendar, it's in Excel, it's in SharePoint, and you want to add some AI technology to it. You want to, for instance, add competitor research, or you want to add some content refinement data. Now, that can, at least in theory, you could use the third-party platforms to fetch data from chatbots and sync that with your Google Sheet or your Excel sheet. And again, it's a major step forward, I think, for organizations. Microsoft also released this Copilot, which essentially is a built-in ChatGPT-powered functionality in the Office suite. So this will do exactly that, I guess. I can see that Rishabh has some internet problems, unfortunately, so I will try to get some questions in the meantime. How to predict AI content in blogs and website content? Can you suggest any tool to check AI content? Yes, that's a really good question there from Siva Lila. There are a bunch of AI content detector tools out there. I'm not going to name them because there's so many of them. They all sound very similar. And to be honest, having tried multiple ones, yes, there are some that are better than others, but the results are never really fully accurate. And as soon as you think you've found that tool, then you will see that, again, you will have problems. So today, I guess if you would like to capture AI content, like with 100% certainty, I think there's no really tool that can do it for you. But to a moderate degree, yes. I could try to share some of those links after the stream, but essentially, I think there's no like ultimate tool that can do that right now.
Great. I think thanks for having that exhaustive answer, because I just was something was wrong with my internet or StreamYard, and I thought I lost it. But I think you covered it well for the audiences. I think couple of last questions, right? I think and this is very hypothetical in the marketing world, but I lead marketing, so I can understand. So if budget and resources were not a concern, how would you envision harnessing AI? To change what you do, to change SEO as a domain itself, or for your
Yeah.
clients?
Yes. For us, what I'm excited about, and I would like to do it, I want to start by saying I don't necessarily think that budget and resources are always the problem, at least right now. It's more about the limitations of the technology itself. Like I can spend a lot of money for ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is still not smart enough to solve like some mathematical problems. But with that aside, something that we have been experimenting with, which I would love to do in the future, is to try to automate, for instance, content refinement. This is something that most content agencies and SEOs do. It's time consuming. You go through a piece of content that ranks fairly well, maybe it has dropped a bit, and you try to figure out, do I have old content? Is some of the content nowadays untrue? Is it not no longer competitive compared to the top competitors? This takes a lot of time. You need to check competitors, you need to check your own content, you need to go through it. But it seems to be really key to maintain good results with Google. So it would be great if we could automate kind of using a chatbot to say, hey, look at this content. In the context of this topic, do you see something here that's no longer relevant? Or do you see something that is outdated? Um, that would save us so much time. And we try to do that, but the problem is always that a lot of these chatbots, either they're kind of a bit unreliable, or they don't have access to the web. Or they have access to the web, but they have no API. So I think once we find a reliable chatbot that has access to web results and has an API that works and that is easy to use, that is going to make a lot of things easier. It would also be nice to have a way to automate competitor monitoring, because that's something that we all do. Even if you're not into SEO or content marketing, every company wants to keep up to date with the pricing, the offerings of their competitors. That takes time, and that's
Yeah,
something that we should be able to automate. Yeah.
yeah, I think with the new updates regarding being able to read the web and URLs, I think we can probably place live monitoring of our competitors and be creepy in our own ways when we are trying to understand them, right? But yeah, I think, but if you have to play the devil's advocate, right, what is one thing that you're not liking at all with AI being in the picture now?
Hmm. Well, I mean, the biggest elephant in the room, Rishab, it's always us SEOs ourselves. I mean, we are our biggest enemy sometimes. We like to point at Google, but look at what we're doing sometimes. And I think the SEO spam, let's call it that. I think this is actually a problem. Um, uh, some people refer to it as programmatic SEO, and I think it has value. It has a place. Nowadays, now we can generate content on scale, and I can see that being useful for a lot of instances. But to have it as your only content strategy, to have no human editing on it, and just roll it out in huge amounts to Google, it's going to flood the web with crap, and that's already happening. And I think the segment of people doing SEO who do it for short-term gains, which is fine, but it clutters the web. But I understand the business model. The web is flooded with low quality or mediocre content, and we're going to see even more of that because of AI. Because now everyone can kind of generate a decent article and put it out there. But we don't need more decent stuff. We need great content. We need something that stimulates people, that adds value, that helps consumers make a choice when they want to buy something. And if you generate a piece solely by an AI tool today, and you make no human editing, it's very, very low risk or very low chance that you're going to get such a content. So yeah, this kind of SEO spam is not great. I think also we need still to think about how do we differentiate ourselves in the market as SEOs. The AI tools are just tools. They're not ends in themselves. And if we use them and we think that, and that was especially in the beginning when ChatGPT came out, every SEO was like, oh, I can do everything with it. I can, I can build links, I can do outreach, I can do content. Some people say, oh, I can do technical SEO strategy with it. Not really. Not to the point that it's going to be super useful. Somebody still needs to assess. I mean, if you ask ChatGPT, give me a technical SEO strategy for my domain, it does surprise us how smart it is, but it won't be able to understand, okay, so what are the priorities in this team? What are the historical problems with this domain? It doesn't know. Maybe it will be able to do it in 5 years' time, or maybe it can do it tomorrow. I don't know. But we're kind of misusing, overusing these tools. I think that's the source of a lot of problems. Otherwise, what people are concerned about, that's on the search engine side. What happens when Google goes live with its AI results? I mean, Most likely it will. Yeah. Right now, Bing is already live. It has AI generated results. It has a chatbot in the SERPs. Google doesn't, but it has clearly communicated that it will. Um, and the issues, I mean, this is nothing new, but there's incorrect stuff being published, like the facts are wrong. And these language models don't understand truth and falsehood. That's one thing. And the sourcing, I think, is the most contested issue in the market. What happens if Google doesn't source the content that they produce? What happens if they don't cred websites? Now they started to do that, but I think even if the AI results that Google has in beta stage, if that went live today, we would see a major traffic drop. And I mean, that's a concern for the whole industry. If we're not being measured on traffic, what should be the new kind of core metric for SEOs? Visibility, perhaps? Yeah, could be.
Great. No, I think everyone has this question of whether Google will kill its own business of rankings and SEO and ads, all of that stuff, right? Because so many searches now happen, which is a way of them running, earning ads money. So I think that's also a question, but I think nobody has an answer. Everyone is guessing. It's 50-50. But yeah, I think one last question from my side before we probably take one or two from the audience would be, what's one dream project or prediction you have that you wish people understood more or believed in it, right? When it comes to AI or SEO or content, whatever that is.
Hmm. I guess to kind of piggyback on what I said earlier, I do think that, like you said, Rishabh, nobody knows how Google and Bing and Yahoo and Yandex and so forth, how their results will look like a few months or years from now. But I think we're SEO as a profession and discipline is moving more towards um, creating and tracking visibility rather than just traffic. I think that's going to be a shift, and I think it's already happening to some degree. We will be less keyword focused, and more likely we will need to rely more on understanding the user. And to be honest, I think we're going to get less data and less accurate data for that. But this is nothing new. I mean, marketing has always been an area where you need to have instincts, experience, and risk taking to be able to pull something off. It was only in this digital age we became so obsessed with everything has to have a metric. We need to have keywords. We used to have keywords in Google Analytics. Then Google took that away from us. Everybody hated that. But I mean, the industry is still thriving. It's just that we had to adapt. And we say nowadays that we're not keyword. It's not keyword first. It's search intent first. But if you look at how many people work, we're still very much focused on optimizing an H1, optimizing a page title. And I think in the future we will kind of need to rethink this. It will require new resources from our side, new ways of working. I think one big change, and I think that's already happening, is that SEO can no longer be that kind of silo team doing their black magic stuff, and everybody's like, "Oh, SEO, yeah, that's sad." Nobody knows what they're doing, but they're doing something that affects search engines. In the future, we need to work together with other teams. Like you can already see, for instance, the perspectives filter in Google. What does it show? Social media stuff. Oh, so now the SEO team needs to work much closer with the social media team. Makes total sense. So the YouTube strategy cannot just be a creation of an SEO person or a social media person. It needs to be social media and SEO together. So SEO, it has become like an interdisciplinary thing. Like every team in marketing needs to know some SEO, and our job, perhaps in the future as specialists, will be to kind of tie the knots together to make people work towards a common goal. So I think that is kind of the major shift that's happening, and it's driven by the AI revolution, I guess.
Lovely, lovely. I think this was really, really interesting and refreshing. I think I love conversation that bashes AI because we have heard enough of how cool it is, how beautiful and game changing it is. I think we all need to probably lean back and understand how probably harmful it can also be, right? So I think I loved your perspective. Everything you are taking AI positively with a pinch of salt, as I can see. I think, and I also see it that way. But yeah, thanks, Alec. We'll probably take one or two questions from the audience. Kunal, if you can probably push that up, and then we can wrap this up. Just a second. Yes. Oh, that's a long question. Lovely. I think that's a good question. It's a very interesting consultant like question.
Yes. So Hari Krishnan here asks, can you provide some practical examples of how AI is currently being used in SEO strategies to enhance the organic search results and user experience? And additionally, he wonders what key considerations should businesses keep in mind when implementing AI-driven SEO strategies to ensure that they are ahead of the curve. Yeah, so that's an interesting one because we talked a lot about how AI can affect like practical work, but what about strategic level? Because that's what a lot of people do as well. Again, I think strategy is always a mix of instinct and data. Like you need to be data informed, but you also have some experience and you need to know how the business works. And I think the data part, again, going back to analysis, finding insights, that has been time consuming before. And that is much more easier now. So maybe before we took some shortcuts to speed up our work. Maybe we didn't really truly dig into the data to see what's going on, especially if you do international SEO. And I think now with these tools that we have to our disposal, that should be possible at a greater degree. So I would say, to try to be concrete, data analysis, finding data insights to fuel your strategy. That's something that you will be doing now because you have access to chatbots. You will be trying to process big data, and that's going to be more and more important as we move forward. Um, when it comes to the user experience, I guess at this point still you need to have a UX person, for instance, looking at data that's more qualitative, like where do people scroll and click on a page. But the data part of it can probably also be sped up. You can feed, for instance, ChatGPT even today. You can give it an Excel sheet and say, find me something interesting here that stands out from last year. That's a question you can make. Or you can take data from last year's traffic from Google Analytics, this year's traffic. You can upload it to a chatbot, and you can ask what are the big differences, or you can ask what pages saw a big drop or a big increase in traffic. That's something that you can do already today, but it's much quicker now. So yeah, speeding up the data analysis for your strategy is kind of one area I can see right now.
Lovely. No, I think fair. I think Alex. I think no. It's always good to talk to someone who's on the field executing, right? And I think it's very easy to get lost and go to conferences and talk about AI, but the real implications are understood by people like you are on the ground. Actually doing it for companies day in day out, right? So I think thank you for this very insightful session. I personally loved it, and I hope we get to talk very soon after I've done some of this. We are trying to do the global SEO part, as you just said, right? And I think I've probably going to redraw my strategy a bit here or there.
Super. It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Rishabh.
Yeah. Thank you, and don't mind the patchy internet in middle for the 2 3 minutes. Apologies for that.
No worries.
Thank you, thank you,
Thank you so much.
thank you for everyone who is tuned in. See you in the next live. Bye bye.